So in the past, I think everyone's been through those times where you look at pictures of yourself a couple of years ago and you're like, what was I thinking? Those brows just look awful. And I didn't really overpluck my brows. I definitely, you know, when you're turning into a teenager, you want to get into all that beauty stuff. I definitely went a bit overboard on products and maybe making my brows a little bit too perfect. But now I understand what makeup I like, what makeup looks good. I really now prefer a more brushed out, bushier brow that's still groomed, but you can actually see the individual hairs. So when it comes to making up my brows now, I use a lot of less product and I really am specific with what I use. And I think when you're younger, you know, you just try different things and there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't know, I guess you just look back and you just have to laugh, because I'm sure everyone had thin brows. I even had that, you know, the tadpole brow where it's bigger at the front and it's really small. But now thankfully they've grown back a little bit and I'm still in the process of trying to grow them out a little bit here, and everyone knows it's easy to get rid of hair, but to grow it back it's a nightmare basically. So I just basically try and keep them groomed. So in terms of hair removal for the brows, I've tried pretty much everything you can do: waxing, threading, cutting, getting it done by a professional and myself. And I do own a wax pot and sometimes I do my own waxing if I'm desperate, but recently I just went to get my eyebrows threaded. I go to this salon in New York called Show Bar. They just specialise in waxing and threading, mainly eyebrows to be honest, and I go to the one in Soho. I really like it to be honest, and the reason I like threading other than waxing is because threading is very precise. You can say to them, well, you know, I'm trying to grow this bit out here but I want to keep this, and they can really tailor it to the individual hair, so you can be very precise about exactly what you want removed. It looks very clean after. I personally like my eyebrows after about a week after having them threaded, just so they don't look too perfect, but it's really nice and safe to get, you know, if you ever get hair around here, you just want a little bit removed just so it looks really clean. I do recommend threading. Waxing is great and all, but I just think the skin under here is just so sensitive, especially me because I have kind of a little bit of a hooded eye. It's so sensitive that, you know, even when I'm having it threaded I have to really pull it up. Having it waxed around there, it just makes it puffy and I just don't like the way it feels. So yeah, I'm really a threading, what's the word, advocate? What's the word, Jack? So when you're doing your brows, I always like to recommend to use a spoolie. I kind of upgraded from using a mascara one recently, and this is a Bdellium Tools 733, and I just brush it up. If you've done your foundation before, you may have some foundation lying around between your brows, so I'm just kind of grooming them so I can really see the way they lay. And also when you brush them up, you're going to give yourself a more lifted appearance, and it's just going to be a lot more flattering on every single face shape. And then I just take my Uemura hard formula, which I've spoken about a million times now, and this is one of those products that you use and you hear about it so much and then you use it and it just, nothing comes out. Well, this one kind of interacts with your natural brow oils, I guess hair oils, so you get the most pigment in the areas with the most hair. But that doesn't mean you can't add hair where there isn't hair, you just have to kind of go in a little bit harsher than normal. But I love this because I love natural brows, and for me it's the perfect colour. So I mean, if you're Asian, this would be perfect for you too, because the tone of this is just perfect. It has a little bit of grey in it as well. So I just kind of like to work mainly starting from about here. I never really go into here unless I want to kind of draw an individual hair. I want it to look quite bushy, so I can go in there a little bit, but I tend to start about here, kind of in the beginning of your iris, and then I'm just using hair-like strokes, kind of building up. And then I really take the pencil the angle the hair grows. So for instance, here the hair is like this, then it kind of goes like this, and then here the hair is pretty much like that. So you want to hold it like this and then brush out. Now another bit of advice would be to keep this area as free from hair as possible. So you kind of want your eyebrow to be a little bit lifted. So if you're going to add any hair here, you can add a little bit on the top. So I wouldn't really recommend doing much on the bottom. Just add a little bit to the top if you want it to be thicker. And it will also give you more room to do your eyeshadow as well. It's just going to make your eye look a little bit lifted. So once you've created some definition, I just like to go over again with my spoolie just to kind of blend the hairs with the product. So over the past couple of months I've really gotten into brow gels. I just think they are the most perfect finishing touch for any brow lover out there, or if you want your brows to look beautiful and defined but you can see the individual hairs and you also want to lift them as well. So I love it primarily for those reasons, and I love this one in particular. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills because it doesn't leave any crispiness. You can't see it on the brow, it just looks like you have, you know, brushed up brows basically, but very subtle. So I like to do that on the ends and just all the way through. So the Anastasia Clear Brow Gel really doesn't prolong the wear of the product we're putting on. It just kind of helps set the brows in place. Whereas if you were looking for something a bit more kind of like a powder for the brows, like what a translucent powder is for foundation, in the same principle of what a brow gel is for brow products. If you want something to kind of set the product in place, I recommend the Makeup Forever Brow Seal, and this is great for any hot climates, or whether you're totally revamping your brows and you want the shape and you want the product to stay in place. I really like that one. It's a tube and it comes out kind of like this. It's a little bit more glumpy, I guess, clumpy. Is that a word? Gloopy. So you kind of need to remove a little bit of product because there is a lot of product on the brush, but you just brush it through and it dries and it's perfect. With this one though, I do recommend going with this after, just to make sure there's not too much excess product going on. So if you're happy with the way your brows look and you don't want to add any more individual hairs and you literally just want to fill in a sparse area, I recommend using brow powders. You can obviously use an eyeshadow as well, but for brow powders I like the Anastasia Brow Duos. She also makes like a palette with all the different colours for makeup artists, but for personal use this is amazing. I have the shade medium brown, which is obviously perfect because it doesn't have any warm tones to it and you get two colours, which is ideal. But I personally like to use palettes. I make my own palettes and I kind of mix colours tailored to what my colour is, because honestly the same with foundations. Brow powders have to be very specific to what your shade is. Maybe you want to tweak it a little bit, and if you buy shadows you can do that. So I have the Makeup Forever shadows here. I have 3 of them, and I also have this little one on its own because the palettes come in quads, and these are just their regular eyeshadows, and I've made like a little palette of shadows where I can pretty much make any colour that I want. Obviously I probably need a black as well, but I can make most colours with this. And to make the perfect brow shade I recommend using a little bit of green, a little bit of a darker colour than your brow, and a little bit of the lighter. So for me it'd probably be this one, and this one, and if obviously you have a warmer brow you can also add a little bit of this in. So this pretty much is the perfect formula for any, if you want to tailor any brow shade out there. And I like to add in a little bit of green because every brow shade has a little bit of green. Some has more than others, some's a little bit more kind of cool toned, but if you add a little bit of green it'll just make it look that bit more realistic. So I really recommend doing that. And for more, if you're looking for a super long lasting bulletproof brow, I do recommend the Anastasia Dip Brow Pomade. Now I do advise to use this with caution because if you use it the wrong way it can just look like a block of pigment on your eye. So you can use it with a brush to create individual brow hairs, or you can use it to fill in as well, but just a little goes a long way. It's very thick, it dries very fast, and it can become a little bit bitty on the brow, so just use the smallest amount. And I recommend using this if you're going swimming and you're one of those people that just, you know, you love the way your brows look with product on and you do not want to remove it. And I also like using it at the gym. Funnily enough, I love using it at the gym, just a little bit on the ends really, nothing too crazy. And I have the shade Dark Brown, which is perfect. A little bit too dark, but for me it's fine. So like with the Uemura eyebrow pencil, I literally just like to angle the brush and just draw on little individual hairs. So if I want to thicken this area up a little bit. And if you make a mistake you can always just brush it off with your finger, you know, it's not set totally, it takes a couple of seconds to set. So I think if I could give you any advice, it would be to kind of keep this area clear of any product just so your eyebrows look lifted. It would also be to use brow gel. Definitely get into brow gel because it just makes such a difference to have your eyebrows lifted. Honestly, try it. Even if you just use like a spoolie and then you move on to a brow gel, it will change your life. And also just to think of brows as individual hairs, not like a block of colour. And that way you can really tailor the shape. You can really, you know, make it what you want it to be. And that way it will just transform the way you think about your brow, the way you draw on your brows, to think of little hairs, how that one little hair can make that much difference in the way your brows look. And yeah, I hope you learned something from this video, and it was lovely to talk to you, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!